Miss Melanie. Gentlemen, it's been a long time.
Would you excuse us, please, Melanie?
Sit down, sit down. Our last little gathering was the night before the River Monarch started her ill-fated journey downstream. Now it seems the anti-ganglings of some misbegotten boy have brought her ruin to life. Isn't there anything to drink?
Help yourself.
You seem to be taking it cool enough, Mr. Doolan.
Do you expect me to become hysterical over something that happened 8 years ago?
This is a hanging proposition, Mr. Doolan. Aside from the gold, 23 men went down with that ship.
We knew from the beginning there would be risk.
That was war. But I'm not sticking my neck in a rope for a cause that died long ago.
Then I suggest we find a scapegoat. Somebody has to hang. Who shall it be? Cyrus? Anson? Anyone care to volunteer?
Oh, you're out of your mind. Who's going to put a noose around his own neck?
Be serious, Peter. Our lives and reputations are at stake.
Of course they are. Therefore, it behooves us to find us, as a scapegoat, one man who can't possibly betray us.
Any ideas?
Tom Barkley.
I think not. Tom Barkley was my employer, but he was also my friend. My very good friend.
What are friends for, Cyrus? Particularly dead friends. Unless to make some small sacrifice for the living.
This is no small sacrifice, and you know it.
Afraid of smearing his good name?
It would be bad enough if Tom Barkley's family wasn't here to bear the shame and the loss. If we put this on Barkley, chances are his estate will have to pay back every penny of it. And they'll lose every asset that Tom left behind.
You're talking about the Barkley fortune, the Barkley good name. Well, I say hang the Barkleys. I say better them than us. Gentlemen. Mr. Doolan, how do we go about it?
That's the beauty and the simplicity of it. Gentlemen, you have a distinguished journalist in your midst. One Peter Doolan. A few discreet items in the paper should help us all rest easier.
Jared? Jock!
What is it?
Read this.
Where'd he get this? He stops just about 6 inches short of the biggest liable...
Short? Read on. He practically accused his father of sinking the River Monarch himself. You were supposed to keep this quiet pending investigation.
There were workmen on the salvage crew that day, and heaven knows how many others who knew what we were looking for. It was bound to come out, lads. There's nothing you can do about it.
It was not bound to come out, and there's plenty I can do about it.
Like horsewhipping the blackguard who wrote that, or shooting him, maybe. Now, that'd truly prove your father's innocence, wouldn't it? Look at it this way, lads. Nobody who knows your family or knew your father's going to believe this slander. If slander it is.
If!
I can't allow myself the pleasure of an opinion, lad. Not if Washington asked me to investigate this case.
Necky's right. Jock said it all. Anyone who really knows us would never believe this, and the others don't matter.
I smell bacon frying. Look, maybe it'll all seem different on a full stomach. What about it?
Minnie, how are you?
Good afternoon, Mrs. Barkley. Sit Sit down, please.
No, thank you. It won't take long to say what I've come to say.
You can say it just as easily from that chair. Believe me, Mrs. Barkley, I can well understand how much my article has upset you.
Can you, Mr. Doolin?
And don't think for a minute that it was an easy story to write.
But news is news for all that,
I couldn't have phrased it any better.
Just as you couldn't have phrased those lies you wrote any better.
Mrs. Barkley, believe me, it was certainly not my intention to accuse your husband of stealing that gold.
A good friend of mine, a woman I've known many years, a woman who came to my wedding, just passed me by on the street without saying hello. Now, I'm sure that was not your intention, Mr. Doolin, but that is what happened.
You're being melodramatic, Mrs. Barkley. I wager that secretly half the people in town envy a man with the initiative to steal $1 million from the government. And not that I'm suggesting your husband did such a thing.
Aren't you?
Mrs. Barkley, if you've ever read the masthead of my paper, you might recall these words. The truth, no matter where it leads, no matter who it hurts.
That's all I want, Mr. Doolin, the truth.
All right, Mrs. Barkley, that's well taken. I can't promise you a retraction because I've printed nothing that's demonstrably a lie. But I can promise you this. From here on in my paper, you'll read only the truth. The provable truth.
Sam, I'm not here.
Leave it to me, Miss Melanie.
I'll wait for you. Oh, Sam? This, some of that new manila rope I heard about?
That's right.
Might be able to use some of it at the ranch.
If you come for Miss Melanie, she's gone.
Oh, where?
Didn't say.
Well, she told me to drop in if I was in town.
Guess you're in hard luck.
All right, what's bothering you, Sam?
Nothing. Nothing's bothering you.
What do you mean by that?
Now, you can read the paper, same as all of us.
You mean that story that was in the other day?
Not the other day. That one set us all to wondering. But the one today, we don't have to wonder anymore.
Now, what are you talking about?
You haven't seen it? Well, it's all there. How your mother tried to bribe Mr. Doolin from telling the truth.
Come on.
Thanks, Sam.
No trouble. Wanted to let them know how we feel in this town about thieves, even if they are Barkleys.
Be fair, the lady pleaded, for the honor of my dead husband is at stake.
Just between ourselves, Doolin. Did she really try to bribe you?
Dear friends, would I malign that lovely lady? Clothe my naked villainy with odd old ends, stolen forth of holy writ, and seem a saint when most I play the devil? Richard III, Act 1, Scene 3.
Well, Doolin, you are very versed in the classics.
I find a reference handy when referring to rascals, Mr. Barkley.
All right, Doolin, spell it out. You're not so shy in print. Name your rascals.
If the sins of the fathers are truly borne by their sons...
Come on, Doolin.
Don't be so touchy, dear boy. It isn't every man who can boast of a parent who got away with a cool $1 million in government gold.
us out, but better not start preaching to me.
Nick, the next time you start a public brawl because you don't like what someone says about your family, I wish you'd let me know about it. I'd like to get in on it.
Hey, what's this? Jock, what's all this about?
Corporal Drum's just brought me some fresh orders. I'm moving into the hotel.
Oh, there's plenty of room at the ranch.
Nick, I've been assigned as the investigator on the River Monarch affair. And that being the case, I don't think it fitting that I should remain under your roof.
Now, wait a minute.
Nick, I think he's right.
He is if he figures to dig up something that involves father.
What I think doesn't count, lad. I've got to make a very thorough investigation, starting with the possibility that your father might be involved. Jared, I want to see all of your father's records.
They'll be at your disposal.
Thank you. Corporal, let's get this stuff inside. What about this?
All right, Jock, I can't account for this $70,000 deposit. But 70,000 isn't $1 million.
I know it's far from $1 million, but there are others. What about this, and this, and this? There's absolutely
Well, you can
nothing...
indict our father for being a bad bookkeeper, Jock, but that has nothing with...
Look, I'm just an old soldier trying to do a job. You quite certain there are no other records?
None that I know of.
I know what this must look like to you, Jock. You see, my husband, when he died, had business interests in 5 different states. Factories, lands, mines, gold, silver, copper. You see, business in those days was done during dinner, or out riding, or hunting, or at the club. A contract was drawn up on a paper bag, and between men of honor, no contract at all. A man's word was his bond.
I'll accept that, but if it's possible that your husband might have earned that $1 million and not account for it in his books, it's also possible he could have stolen it and not account for it in his books.
No, just a minute, Jock.
Now, look, there's another thing, too. The ship never sunk because of an explosion in a boiler room. There was a blasting device planted in a cargo hold.
You're talking about murder, because 23 men went down with that ship, and that, Jock, that my husband could have been no part of. Not for 1 million or 10 million or 20 million.
Well, I didn't know the man.
I did.
There was a young boy in my regiment, Corporal Philip Talbot. Ah, broth of a boy. Fearless. Went down fighting. 6 bullets he took. His beautiful young wife. Ah, she mourned him something fierce. As did the 2 other women he married. I'm sure that all 3 of Talbot's wives thought they knew their husband, too. I'm dreadfully sorry, Mrs. Barkley. I haven't completed my investigations yet, but it's my duty to inform you, if my findings go against you, that the government has decided to commence legal proceedings against your husband's estate for $1 million. Good night.